The idea of civilization needs precise description. He says, I think that means that it needs to be defined. He goes on a little bit down. Among the major characteristics of civilization, we may list the following: the presence of firmly organized states, which have definite boundaries, and systematic political institutions, the distinction of social classes, the economic specialization of men as traders, farmers, and artisans. I'll pause for just a second there. It says the distinction of social classes. Now, the key feature of the United States is that there are no social classes. All men are created equal. There is no such thing as not even a slave and a free man anymore. Not even those two social classes, the binary, either you're free or you're not free. Not even that obtains anymore in America, even though it did in our original Constitution. The idea that there are nobles and middlemen and then serfs or whatever is as old as the hills, and was instituted by law forever and ever, and it's returning. Men say we're not all created equal. Some of our beliefs need more protection than other people's beliefs. You know, that's a bad road to travel down. That's where we're going down as I speak. Okay, each dependent on his fellows. Each man was dependent on his fellows. There were artisans, traders, farmers, and so forth. And they're dependent on other people. And the conscious development of the arts and the intellectual attitudes. These are the marks of civilization. In the last point are included the rise of monumental architecture and the rise of the arts, as against simple huts, and sculpture, which carefully represents men. Okay, there used to be sculpture representing women, but that was fertility cults and stuff. Sculpture representing men, and the use of writing to keep accounts or to commemorate deeds, and also the elaboration of religious views about the nature of the gods, their relation to men, and the origins of the world. In other words, writing down myths, origin myths and stuff. Now, monumental architecture, we can think of a civilization that was just more productive than their fathers or grandfathers or great-grandfathers have been. They had hit on a productive, peaceful era. And in order to do something to commemorate this, they wanted to put up a great big statue or something, and they had to overcome massive technological obstacles. This is their version of putting a man on the moon, or their version of the Transcontinental Railroad, their version of the pyramids. And that sometimes was the biggest spur to development and effort. Sure, you got to grow the crops and stuff every day. You just do what your father taught you and your grandfather taught you in the way it's best happened. But to do brand new, harder things than we've ever done before is a spur that comes maybe from a sense of the divine, but not necessarily from the divine. But anyways, to continue with this. Civilization comes from a Latin word meaning the character of an inhabitant of a city. The way of a person who lives in a certain city. Usually civilized people have concentrated their strength in cities like Babylon. But in early Egypt, men dwelt in an almost continuous series of villages along the Nile. Pause for just a second there. The reason that didn't work in the long run is because it may have worked at first, but then all of a sudden it was discovered by somebody that they could maraud village after village after village after village after village. That discovery collapsed the situation into a more peaceful and more centralized situation, which is also probably one of the big factors in bringing it around. Was a center for trade is more beneficial to the people up and down the Nile than just having villages spread up and down. I wouldn't be surprised to find if there was some sort of a legal system preventing the rise of cities at first. I wouldn't be surprised to find that at all. So not all civilizations were centered in big cities at all times, nor have all civilized societies made use of writing, for in Peru records were kept by means of knotted strings with knots tied in them, in different colors and stuff. Everywhere, however, civilization has required the presence of some economic surplus beyond the basic needs of its members. This surplus has been used for the artistic social and political developments noted in the preceding paragraph. That's what the surplus is used for, is all these projects that don't relate to subsistence farming in villages of 150 people. Skipping a bit, and then he goes on with some Marxism, some dribble. He's pretty good about it, but once in a while he falls off a bit. Class distinctions resulted in a situation where some men directed and exploited other men, whether they were free or slave. Now, before there were class distinctions, I'm certain you had this sort of exploitation. The class distinctions were born out of instituted exploitation, not the other way around. You didn't have everybody was fine and there was no exploitation until someone said, oh, well, I'm a noble and you're a serf, and then exploitation occurred. No. Other way around. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Marx. Wars and imperialism appeared with the objectives of gaining glory for the gods of one's city, or of one's king, maybe, and also for securing raw materials, possibly, and for booty. Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, that's the one. That's most likely. Wars and imperialism was probably for the purpose of gaining booty in 99% of cases. Psychologically, the inhabitants of ancient Mesopotamia felt many stresses. Yes, brutal, short, nasty, dark world. Alright, on to Mesopotamia. We know something about Mesopotamia, don't we? It's Greek for the land between two rivers. It lies between the Tigris and the Euphrates.